UFC 329, Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2. Been almost 14 years since their first fight, which is just crazy to think about. How long we've been watching these sport and watching these guys grow and evolve, seeing the superstar that Conor became, transcending the sport, seeing even Max hitting his stride, beating guys like Aldo in the end, and becoming one of the baddest dudes in UFC history. It's just wild to think about that they're meeting again at this time. Arguably, both guys are a little past it. I mean, Connor's definitely past what he was in his prime. In his prime, you can argue he's the greatest featherweight of all time. I know people will talk to me about Aldo, Volkanovski, etc. But in Connor's run to the belt and defeating Aldo and then moving up and beating Eddie, that little run, I mean, is just unrivaled. Smoking Poirier in the first round when Poirier was an incredible fighter. I mean, you can argue that Connor's beating Dustin sent him to lightweight, and Max, just I think you can argue that he's the best featherweight of all time as well because Volkanovski surely beat him up, was more well rounded than him, but I mean Max's prime was really when he beat Aldo, and someone better always arises, but Max held the belt for so long, defended so many times. Just two incredible fighters here, and I'm glad that Conor took some years off because that injury could have truly been career ending, and it still may be. We don't know. When he gets back in the cage, we'll see if his movement is just stagnated, if he still looks kind of strange like he did against Poirier the second and third times, because it seemed like he lost a lot of his fleet-footedness. He was just relying purely on boxing when he used to be very agile and use spinning kicks as fluff to land the punches, very cerebral in there. Against Poirier, it just looked like he was trying to land hard punches without mixing anything up. And his defense has never been great. McGregor's just always had an unbelievable chin. His durability was second to none. Even Aldo, you saw he got cracked at the same time when he slept Aldo. Even Chad Mendez landed hard shots on Conor, and he was one of the most hard hitting featherweights we've ever seen. So, you know, this is a tough one. And I'll be honest, like if you asked me, even a year and a half, 2 years after the Poirier fight, I would say, dude, Conor should never fight again. I was even gonna take Chandler against Conor. That's how down on the guy I was, right? Because he just wasn't in a place to fight. He was obviously on substances, doing interviews, just completely whacked out of his mind, fighting guys in bars. I mean, I know that was even before the Poirier fights, but still, he just seemed completely out of control, and not living the lifestyle that got him to the greatness that he achieved. But now we're in an interesting timeline because Conor seems, and it's not so much that Conor's reformed his lifestyle, but that is subconsciously something that I am intaking. It's just more so that Max, there's something that's changed in Max as well, which makes me think this is a much closer fight than it probably should be on paper. On paper, you would take Max because Max's only recent losses to Charles Oliveira, who really just grappled him, didn't even beat him in the striking, which is what Connor's going to use. Connor's not going to be able to implement the same game plan he used 13, 14 years ago, where he literally got injured and took Max Holloway down. It would have been super intriguing to see a little striking match between Conor and Max back in the day because Max was so hyper durable and Conor was just so elite at that point that it would have made for a true classic instead of what we got. It's a classic because of the fighters involved, but the fight itself, a little lackluster. Regardless, though, what I've seen from Max, that Charles Oliveira fight was alarming because it was a culmination of things, of Max really just seeming like he didn't really want to be in there. And a lot of people will argue, this is recency bias. Charles beat him and took him down the whole time, took his back, and just made it hard for Max to get anything off, which is true. But the truth of the matter is that Max was getting lit up in the first round too. Like when they started on the feet, Max wasn't looking good on the feet against Charles. He was getting hit by big shots. And then Charles was like, F it, I'm going to make this fight easy for myself. But even the fact that Max wasn't able to get up at all, I mean, he just got ridden out for 25 minutes. And then at the end of some of these rounds, including the fifth round, they would trade, and even when he pointed at the ground, he just gets clipped by a right. He looked so out of sorts. And sometimes it's not even about the opponent or the style. It's about what you see in the guy. And I just saw a guy who maybe just doesn't have it anymore. And I know people are going to call it recency bias, whatever. Oh, that's Charles Oliveira, dude. He's a great fighter, et cetera, et cetera. But there was just something in Max where he was just okay having his back taken, getting beat up for 25 minutes, didn't have any urgency in any of the rounds. On the feet, he got lit up. It was so bad. And I'm like, does this guy even have the hunger anymore? I mean, on kick.com, that's really all he does anymore. I'm sure he's getting paid sponsorships by Kick, etc. But you see him just playing games a lot, enjoying his life, which he deserves to do. I mean, he was a legendary champion for so long, and I can understand it. You just kind of grow out of it. Maybe I'm being a little too over analytical here, and maybe Max still has it, etc. But something about that fight, something about Max just playing games every other day, gambling every other day, it just put me off to him. I just don't know if this guy really has it anymore. And it's so, I don't know, it's alarming to me because these signals are telling me subconsciously, like, dude, Max shouldn't be minus 265 against Conor. Like, he just shouldn't be. Even if it was an even money fight, I'd still be struggling with it, which is crazy to me because, again, as I said, just a couple years back, I would have taken Chandler against Conor. That might have been a stupid play, but I really don't think Conor was in a place to do anything athletically at a pro level just a couple years back, where his head was at, the substances he was abusing, etc. So I don't know. If Conor comes in shape and he's motivated and his striking looks on point and Max just isn't in the sport anymore, his head isn't there, it could be a strange ending, in more than one way. I mean, Conor could stop Max on the feet if he lands a good shot. Conor's always got that precision, got that power. He was able to hurt Poirier at a couple moments, he's not getting injured. Me, myself, a few years back, I had a terrible injury, not so dissimilar to Conor, where basically my ankle was like hanging off my leg. And that's kind of what happened to Conor as well, except he broke his tibia, I believe. So with mine, you need pins and screws and stuff like that, a lot of them. With him, you just need a steel rod, which actually improves the durability of the leg. I mean, he's got a titanium rod through his bone, so it takes away some of the flexibility and malleability, but it's really just a leg. It's a leg bone that's straight anyway. So it's not like taking a bunch of as I said, mobility from him, as if it was just like a complete like foot break, or if he smashed like his entire like shin or femur or something like that. I think it was a tibia break, and they put a rod through it, and so he still has mobility in his ankles and whatnot, and his leg is just titanium now. So that's something interesting to think about. I'm still a little conflicted because Conor definitely isn't the man he once was, and I have to go by what I see in the cage. And what I saw in the cage last time was horrible. But I'd have to imagine that he's in a better place now than he was even taking those fights then, because even when he took those rematches against Poirier, it just looked all bad for him, man. He was just in a bad place mentally, and he probably just couldn't let go of the sport. But now he's coming back with something to prove against a guy in Max who I think has lost this step. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to take Conor McGregor to win in some way, in some fashion. I really can't believe I'm taking Conor, but I'm gonna take him. It's just one of those. It's just a feeling. It's a feeling, and lately my feelings have been on point when I'm getting this. My gut just tells me, like on paper, it's like you should take Max. If we're going strictly by looking at the paper, looking at the fights, you should probably take Max. But just observing the sport over the past few years, seeing these guys, seeing their regression, seeing their fall, seeing maybe their re-rise as Conor might have. It's just something's telling me don't take Max. It's more so don't take Max as opposed to being like take Conor 100% here. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna take Max Holloway. The things I've seen over the past couple years have just been, I don't know. I don't know, man. I can't take Max here. And it might be the worst mistake I make on this card. But again, you have to remember, I just make my own predictions based on how I'm feeling, my logic, my gut. And if you're watching me, you can't take me at 100% because you're going to disagree with me. What you should do with my picks is compare, contrast, see where my biases lie, see if my logic matches yours. And if you think I'm talking crazy, then fade me all the way. You know what I mean? These picks are just to help guide you. They're not set in stone to be like these are the right picks. These are just my thoughts. So, the more you compare and contrast, the more you can kind of contrast your logic with mine, the better you'll do. So, I always feel bad when I get my picks wrong and I tell people that I feel confident in plays. Like even last week, I was so confident in some guys that just ended up, you know, effing around, losing the fight. And I feel bad about that. But at the end of the day, I just have to let you know, obviously, you can't take me at 100. And I don't think anybody watching me takes me purely at 100. But again, it's more of a guide than anything else. So, I just can't take Max here. I can't take Max. So I'll take Conor McGregor there. I don't even know the result I'd like. It's hard to see Max getting stopped. If Conor wins, it's most likely a TKO or something like that. But we'll just have to see. Co-main event: Benoit Saint Denis versus Paddy Pimblett. I like this fight. I do think that since this fight was announced a long time ago, I thought this fight was going to approach more sooner than it actually did because they announced this fight a long while ago, and then I was like, man, that's a little soon for Paddy to be fighting, but it feels like Paddy's had enough time off from that Gaethje fight, and I don't know, the Gaethje loss doesn't seem so bad in retrospect, seeing what Gaethje did to Topuria, but obviously styles make fights. Paddy was able to match the size of Gaethje, which is why he was able to take those shots a little better, in my opinion. What's interesting here is that BSD is a bigger man. He's going to be taller. I feel like BSD is probably the stronger guy here. What Paddy has is a pretty sophisticated jiu-jitsu game and a ton of durability. But if we're talking about pure striking potential, I don't know, man. He's obviously got some power because he's a pretty big guy for the division. He's a strong guy. He's athletic on fight night. You can tell he's always in shape when it comes to fight night. Forget out of camp, but on fight night, the guy comes ready. BSD, what he has is incredible punching power. I'd say Paddy's durability is probably a little better than BSD's if we're talking about just like taking shots on the feet. And BSD's jiu-jitsu game is probably just as good as Paddy's, if not better, I'd say. But I'd say those cancel out. So where do we get? Where do we land in this fight? I feel like we're gonna get a combination of Benoit Saint Denis wrestling and Paddy's jiu-jitsu. And on the feet, I feel like this can actually be a war. You know what I mean? If Paddy lands some good shots, maybe hurts Benoit, but Benoit just overpowers him on the ground. It's interesting because when I look at it skill for skill, it's actually a much closer fight than it may turn out to be because you realize that Paddy can actually match his jiu-jitsu game. I don't think Paddy can match his power, which is probably what's going to overwhelm Paddy in the end and get to him. I think that BSD, he is so strong, especially in like the clinch and his close punches, and like if he lands a check hook on Paddy or he starts landing big shots, I think Paddy's going to struggle. Even though Paddy's got a fantastic chin, he did go through 25 minutes with Gaethje, which although he has taken some time off, it still has to take a toll on you. Din Thomas, I was watching the Deep Waters podcast with him and Masvidal, etc. It's a good podcast, and Dean was saying something interesting where when guys fight Gaethje, he takes a little something from them. You know what I mean? And that might be true. You have to kind of consider that. Did Gaethje take a little something from Paddy? And even if he didn't, it's still a tough matchup against BSD because Paddy needs to really thrive when he gets his grappling game going, getting that jiu-jitsu, taking the back. I don't see Paddy having any luck with that. I feel like if he tries to get BSD's back, or even if he tries to work his guard game on BSD or even take BSD down, I feel like all that's going to be null and void. And if it does stay on the feet, I would trust BSD to land the harder shots here. I like BSD. The closer the fight gets, the more of a shot I give to Paddy in order of of him to win. I feel like his skills match up against BSD pretty interestingly, But yeah, I've got to go with Benoit Saint Denis. I mean, Benoit, if this fight happened like a month, 2 months ago, Benoit would have been an absolute lock for me. I wouldn't say he's near lock territory anymore because as more time passes, things just change for me because Paddy gets more time to recover. Paddy gets more time to evolve. But if you would have taken it closer to that beatdown against Gaethje, I would have especially loved Benoit. And I'm still going to take Benoit. But I actually do give Paddy a shot to win this one just because, as I said, a lot of their skills match up in a very interesting way. I just think that Paddy is used to being the bigger man, and that's not going to be the case here, and that's going to hurt him. You know what I mean? He was even slightly bigger than Gaethje, around the same size as Gaethje, which helped him take those shots. But what happens with Benoit? Because I mean, Gaethje's 5'10", I think Paddy's around 5'10". Benoit is 5'11", and he hits so freaking hard, man. He really does, you know? We saw him compete at welterweight. He didn't do great, but he was still able to do a lot of work against Zaleski. I mean, BSD is a very strong lightweight, and I got to take him here. I got to take him here. It's just everything's pointing me in that direction. And I do think if he does win, he'll probably finish. I mean, I could see him even submitting Paddy after hurting him, something like that. Maybe dropping Paddy. We've seen Paddy in some bad spots before. He leaves his chin wide open. I mean, I know he's improved from the Jared Gordon fight, etc. But when you look at fights like that, even when he, was in the apex and knocked out Vendramini and his chin's just out, like he hasn't changed a lot of that. When Gaethje had him in trouble, he's just sticking his chin out and landing some good shots on Gaethje, but his technique starts lacking when he gets a little tired and hit hard. So I feel like Benoit's just always in there. He's a dog. But Benoit, we saw, he was getting lit up by Prepelec too. So both of these guys have chinks in their armor, and it's going to make for a great, fun co-main event here. And again, I got BSD. All right, Cory Sandhagen versus Mario Bautista. People are still riding the Sandhagen train. I feel like Sandhagen has lost a step or two, if we're going to be honest. Obviously, his losses are to guys only at the very tip top of the division. And so if you're taking him, it's more than fair to be like, oh, well, he's only lost to Merab, Umar, Peter, TJ before that. But a lot of people think he won that TJ fight, and Bautista hasn't really fought anybody on that level, except he did fight Umar and he dropped Umar and he fought very well against Umar. You can argue that he might have even had better moments against Umar than Cory did because Umar just like 50-45. Cory made it easy, just rode him out, took him down, like made no issue of it, whereas Bautista was always trying to win that fight, even off his back. Bautista's a firecracker, man. I've been underestimating this guy. I think he's a far more athletic than Cory, and obviously Bautista was just a youngin' in the game, was getting slept by bad fighters back when Cory had beat him pretty easily, and Cory was thought to be the next big thing. She kind of was, and then Bautista took a lot of time to kind of learn his craft, get his game up, and he has, man. We're seeing the best version of Bautista now, and we're seeing a version of Cory that maybe has hit his peak, maybe realizes he's just not good enough to be champ, but still good enough to beat a ton of guys. But that last performance against Merab was so pathetic. And I know it's Merab. Merab's a great fighter, championship level. But the way Cory got hurt in that fight by Merab was so strange. Multiple times getting hurt badly on the feet, absolutely dominated. Not a good look, man. Not a good look. It's kind of like, if I can allude to the Holloway fight again, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it's not about the level of fighter he's fighting. Like a lot of the times it is about that, but it's almost about like how they're taking damage from the guy. Like if he had just gotten ragdolled, rinse and repeat by Merab, whatever, that's what Merab does. But to get hurt on the feet by Merab like that, where he almost had an early knockout on you, that's not a good look, man. That's not a good look. So yeah, I think Cory's regressed a bit. And I like where Bautista's at, man. I think he's hungry for the win. How many times do we see rematches play out differently? Even look at Kopp versus Horiguchi last week. Just a completely different result there. And I'm gonna take Bautista here. I think he's hungry, man. He's hungry. Cory's just probably, I think Bautista's hungrier for a win against the guy who smoked him the first time than Cory is. And even if it wasn't about that, I just think again, Bautista's in a better place. He's just fighting well now, and he's just irrefutable, man. I mean, this guy's technique is fantastic. Look at what he did to Vinicius Oliveira. Obviously, these guys aren't on the level of guys that Cory has fought, and I said that already. But look what Bautista's doing to them. He is just his wrestling. His wrestling looks amazing. His striking looks so clean. And this guy was an underdog to Patchy Mix. Destroyed him. Destroys Oliveira in a main event. So, he's 5-round ready. I mean, he looks extremely athletic nowadays. He's just got everything going for him. So, I think Bautista's the right play there. All right, Brandon Royval versus Lonnie Kavanagh. I guess Lonnie, Lanier. I don't know. I like to say it how it's written, but Kavanagh's amazing, man. One of my better picks this year was his Mexico City win against Brandon Moreno. It's so funny because Kavanagh did a complete 180 on me. I was not sold on this guy. I took Charles Johnson against him. I didn't take Ochoa against him, but I knew that would be a very close fight because I just wasn't sold on Kavanagh. I had seen him get dropped on the regionals. I was like, it seems like he's got solid striking fundamentals, but his defense isn't really there. And then I saw the Felipe dos Santos fight, and then I was like, okay, he's not bad. He mixed in the takedowns, looked very sound. Because Felipe had fought Manel Kopp in a very tough fight. And I'm like, Kavanagh handled Felipe like nothing, man. That was a great performance from him. Moreno was not impressing me in the moment, so I'm like, you know what? Let me take Kavanagh against Moreno. It just makes sense to me. And he came through, looked fantastic, looks better than he ever has. Kavanagh is a serious threat. This is why flyweight is one of the best divisions right now. Who knows? We might get a solid era of flyweight fighters, which we've never had before. We've always had like flyweight legend. We've had DJ eras with guys lingering in the background like Benavidez and Dodson. And then after that, we kind of just had like the Moreno Figgy era, which was just them going back and forth and nobody else could really hang with the guys, or they just didn't get a chance to. And guys lingering in the background like Alex Perez, etc. But now we have guys who are real threats. I mean, we have Kopp, and I know Horiguchi just got stopped and he's a little older, but he's still always in the mix too. Moreno's a little past it. Royval's past it, but with guys like Kavanagh, Van, Kopp, sick era of fighters, even Pantoja coming back, even though he's a little older now. I'm looking forward to it. You don't need that many fighters to have a great era of a division. You can create sick matches between them all, rematches, etc. Royval getting slumped by Kopp in that last one, not a good look. Royval really excels when he can get his pace going, but he's always been quite hittable. He did great against Tyra. I actually took him against Tyra as well, but Tyra was just so green at the time, and Royval had 5-round experience, and Tyra's not the heaviest hitter, and I think Royval can actually thrive when a guy is just trying to take him down constantly. But if you actually have power on the feet and you're just able to either outpoint him, hurt him on the feet, stop the takedowns that he goes for. Because at the end of the day, I guess Royval has kind of converted himself into a striker, this kind of boxer, kickboxer type. He always had some slick power, etc. I mean, I remember when he fought Kai Kara France, he was always able to use his Muay Thai pretty well, his elbows, his knees. But I mean, he's just kind of too reliant on his stand up when he should do what got him to the dance. He had some slick jujitsu, some fantastic grappling in his back pocket, and that's how he got to the top because he beat some very good guys. And I don't know, I just think that Kavanagh has just got the poison for Royval, man, because Kavanagh's just so well rounded. He's just going to keep him right where he wants him, pick all his shots, stop the takedowns if there are, and even though Royval's probably not even going to shoot anymore, right? So Kavanagh is just twice the striker Royval is. He's going to stop any grappling that happens because Kavanagh is just an underrated grappler himself. And I really don't see any ways for Royval to win this. I mean, especially where they're at in both their careers. Sure, Royval might use that veteran savvy to land some slick elbows or some nice shots and make it a little messy. But if Kavanagh doesn't fall into that trap, which I don't think he will, he's just going to pick Royval apart for 3 rounds and maybe stop him. So I'm looking very forward to the return of Kavanagh. God, I was proud of him, man. And I don't really feel the way I used to feel in fights. Like, I'll admit, man, I'm 37. I'm older. I've been watching this sport for so long. So I used to get actually like proud of fighters. I remember when Wonder Boy had his rise to the top. I was proud of that guy, man. Just he was an underdog to Johnny Hendricks, a washed version of Hendricks. came through with that head kick, and then became, near champion. And I was proud of that guy for being an underdog, carrying his striking style all the way to the top, entertaining fighter. It was just a different era back then, and it was a different me back then, where I could actually feel the excitement and get emotional watching these guys fight and actually root for them. I mean, if you have a fighter you root for, that's amazing. You're ingrained in the sport. I haven't had a fighter to root for in years. There's just not really been anything like that for me. The era has just kind of changed. It's almost like even in like 2015, 2016, although it was, a good like 20 years after the sport's inception, the sport's still a baby, and the sport is still a child, but it's growing. It's getting, 30 years, 40 years. That's when a sport can start understanding what it really is, and what people can understand who the greats truly are, and the sports moved fast in these past few years, especially past 2020, where so many new fighters have come in, especially from the Contender Series, and yeah, so I'm excited. Kavanagh's one of the few dudes. Sorry to ramble, but Kavanagh's one of the few guys where I'm like, I'm excited to see what this guy can do. Every fight he's actually getting better, and it's so intriguing because I really wasn't sold on him at all. I'm like, this guy is just a flash in a pan. He's not going to be anything. But now I really believe, and there were dudes who believed in the beginning in him, but I was more like, I think these dudes are kind of just like supporters. They might be from the UK. Of course, they're going to believe in him somewhat. But until he really showed us what he was made of, against in the Felipe fight, the Moreno fight, I was like, yeah, this kid's the real deal. So Kavanagh, I'll probably take decision just because he's such a smart fighter, so cerebral with it that he's going to pick Royval apart. He's not the hardest hitter in the world, Kavanagh. Um, so I'll take the decision there, but I'm confident in Kavanagh winning this one. All right, King Green versus Terrance McKinney. I just watched that Terrance McKinney submits like 10 black belts or something, like, or what was it? No, it submits 10 white belts. Sorry, it submits 10 white belts. So I didn't realize McKinney's still a purple belt, which is hilarious because his jiu-jitsu is actually one of his stronger games in the UFC. Besides, like, obviously his explosive power early in fights. King Green is a guy that I'm just bad at predicting, man. Like I personally, I hate both of these guys. Not personally on a personal level. I just hate predicting their fights, okay? Because I feel like Green can really like his chin stinks. I don't know who he's going to lose to. I don't know if he's going to get hurt or have a standout performance. There's some fights I know he's definitely going to lose, but I never know if he's definitely going to win, and I just hate that. Same with McKinney. I know some fights he's definitely going to lose, and the other ones I just don't know if he's going to win. And with him, it's knockout or bust. So with this one, McKinney's going to sleep Green in the first, which is actually hard for me to see. I don't think McKinney has the sort of technique to really put Green away. As weird as that sounds, because I know McKinney's had some very close moments, even against like a guy like Drew Dober, who was able to put Bobby away, right? But here's what's interesting about this fight. You take that fight, McKinney and Dober, right? Where McKinney is just putting everything on Dober, nearly puts him away in the first, and then Dober comes back and sleeps him, right? And then you have Green, who actually got put away by Dober in the second round. But in that fight, the whole first round, Bobby is literally styling on Dober, destroying him. And it just shows you that styles make fights, especially in a fight like this one, because Bobby Green is quite slick in the first round. You have to have like real attributes on him. You have to be like Jalen Turner, or you have to be taking down Bobby Green in the first round. You have to have like uh, you have to excel in the grappling to get Bobby down, or you have to just be massive and your reach is so long on Bobby that he can't really handle it. But in the first round, I mean, McKinney isn't that much bigger than Green, and if McKinney's using that flying stuff to get Green out of there, flying knees, or just I mean, if McKinney just sticks to his boxing, which is a little shaky, I don't really trust McKinney's boxing. He's so wild. Even in the Duncan fight, you just see him swinging wild. I think Bobby's just going to throw straight punches straight down the middle and crack Terrance, like it might actually go like over a round, because if Bobby's just deciding to use his footwork and style on Terrance, and Terrance is just gassing out. I could see Bobby submitting him in the second round, something like that. It's a very intriguing fight because you have to have McKinney finishing Bobby in the first round by strikes. Bobby is too sophisticated of a grappler, at least at this level. I mean, McKinney at the end of the day is a purple belt. Bobby, I don't know what his ranking is, but in MMA, he's got black belt level jiu-jitsu, man. We've seen his work on the ground. I know Tony was old, but his submission looked good in that fight. He knows what to do in top position. I think Bobby Green, again, McKinney has to land a kill shot in the first round, which isn't impossible. Bobby is older now. His chin has never been great. So if McKinney lands a hard shot and drops Bobby, finishes him, so be it. But I don't really see that. I see Bobby being a little too fleet-footed for Terrance, avoiding those big shots. And honestly, he could hurt Terrance too. These are two glass cannons in a way. And I think Bobby just has so many more tools to extend the fight. So I'm actually going to take Bobby Green here. And I'm actually kind of confident in it, which is weird because some of these matchups like Bobby, I have no confidence in. I'll admit, I took Jeremy Stephens against him, for God's sake. Not so much because I love Jeremy Stephens. I just didn't see a lot of underdogs on that card. But man, I'm oddly confident in Bobby Green. And it's a scary thing, but it's also kind of a cool thing. I like when I'm confident in a guy that I never have confidence in because it tells you that I'm seeing something real there, right? So I like Bobby there. I think he gets McKinney out of there probably, in the second round, something like that. He's just got to watch his P's and Q's, play his cards right, and not give in to McKinney's trap of trading, which he never does. Bobby is not going to fight McKinney like Duncan fought him, or guys, like Kyle Nelson, who just tries to, knock him out, just gets knocked out coming forward. No, Bobby's going to take his time, be fleet-footed, have his hands down, but that doesn't matter because McKinney's boxing isn't the best. It's really with the flying knees and the unorthodox strikes he catches guys with. And I think Bobby's actually really good at seeing stuff like that. So that's enough of that fight, but I'm going to take Bobby Green there. All right, Damian Pinas versus César Almeida. This Damian guy is so slick, and it's funny because I've had utmost confidence in Damian in every one of his fights. I'm like, this guy is just a pure monster, and he's just a guaranteed knockout every time he fights. This one's a little interesting, though, because Almeida is a very good fighter, man. He's a very good striker, I should say. Didn't César beat like Poatan at some point in kickboxing? I mean, he is really a fantastic striker. And even Oleksiejczuk, Kopylov, these guys are solid strikers, and they had to wrestle him. So if Damian thinks he can go in there and just knock him out, that'd be foolish. But I actually have seen a lot of tweets or on X, whatever, a lot of posts on X from Damian Pinas, where he self-admittedly says, my next fight is a very tough one and could elevate me to the top 15 or something. So I think he understands the danger that lies with César Almeida. And I don't see a knockout for this one. I think you can play this one quite interestingly because when you have a knockout artist who's much younger like Pinas, they're going to make the knockout the favored odds, right? They're going to be like, well, him getting a knockout is going to be highly favored, probably. I don't know what it'll be, but minus 150 to minus 200, depending on how big of a favorite he actually is. So I can see that. And I think you can play this one interestingly, maybe by taking Pinas by decision, because Pinas is not just going to be able to go there and run his same game plan against César Almeida. Almeida is too good of a striker, too experienced, and knows how to avoid danger there. But this may be a fight where we see more of Pinas's game, where we see more of the clinch work, using his youth, using his size, maybe getting some takedowns here. And I think the UFC set this up to be like, is Pinas more than just a knockout artist? Or can he knock out a guy like César Almeida? And if he does, then we're dealing with a guy who is just so serious. And I'm going to take Pinas, of course. I'm riding with this guy. I like him. He's one of the better prospects in the UFC. But I do think it could get interesting. Almeida is a very sophisticated striker, as I've said. I do think we're going to see more to Pinas's game because we'll have to. These guys are tough. Oleksiejczuk this is Oleksiejczuk's brother, Mihal's brother, César, who fought César Almeida. He had to really use the wrestling. He didn't even try to strike with César. Kopylov tried to strike with César and was like, damn, I got to take this guy down, So, yeah, it'll be very interesting. Obviously, Pinas is longer, bigger than those guys, stronger, younger, but nonetheless, you're dealing with a very experienced veteran kickboxing veteran, like real veteran here. So yeah, again, let's see more of Pinas's well-rounded game, and I'll take him there, probably by decision. Ryan Gandra versus Zach Reese. Yeah, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Gandra, maybe once he gets to a higher level, he's going to face some issues just because he seems a bit one dimensional. We haven't seen anyone who can really challenge him here. But my God, man, he's dealing with Zach Reese, a guy who is just terrible, man. Zach Reese has some good power in his hands, but he's just a regional level fighter to me. He's never really shown himself to be quite UFC level. I feel like Michel Pereira fell so far, and Michel looked like himself against Zach Reese. It just shows you that Zach Reese is a low level, hasn't really evolved even since his debut when he got stopped by Brundage. So he knocked out Julian Marquez. Who cares? He couldn't even finish Jose Medina. These signs are just terrible, you know? So even if Gandra gets into trouble, I don't even think Zach Reese will finish him. Zach Reese probably going to start trying to wrestle and stuff like that, and he's not even that good at that. It was a split decision versus Michel Pereira. I actually took Zach Reese in that fight, and I was like, that is one of the clearest unanimous decisions for Pereira that I've seen, honestly. Zach Reese looked awful in that fight. He's not on the level at all, and he's also got a bum chin, too. I don't think he can take shots very well. He's so chaotic. His fight style is just hectic, man. So I think Gandra landed some big shots, probably can get takedowns himself. So I'm taking Gandra there. Now, there's always obviously a little bit of apprehension when you're dealing with a stylistic matchup like that because Gandra can get a little reckless. These are two power punchers at the end of the day, and Gandra is still inexperienced enough where we don't know if maybe he's just like regional level as well. But I think Gandra by round 1 KO is probably the way to go there. And then Cody Garbrandt versus Adrian Yanez. Man, Yanez, man, looked so good against Ricky Simone and got robbed in that one. I mean, that was a terrible robbery, man. I don't know what happened there. That was truly one of the worst was it this year or last year? Or whatever. It was one of the worst robberies in the past year. And I was surprised because Yanez took a good amount of time off. It seems to have done him well, man. I mean, you can't deny that the boxing ability this guy has. Some of the better hands in the UFC, undoubtedly, Yanez. And Garbrandt is a mess, dude. Garbrandt is just shouldn't be fighting anymore. The Long Zhao debacle was insane. I felt like, probably he should have probably won it only because of the point deductions. And Long Zhao was a little the low blows were egregious, I will admit. But Long Zhao stinks. He's an idiot. And if you didn't have the point deductions and whatnot, Long Zhao was actually beating him up. Garbrandt had some good moments early where you could see a spark of his former kind of champion contender self, but then he just fell apart. The guy's got no cardio. And this is a tough one because Garbrandt, he's always had the faster, better hands, but I don't think that's the case with Yanez. I think Yanez can not only match the speed, but also match the power, and he's probably the better boxer at this point in time. Yanez has always been chinny to me, but Garbrandt doesn't really have that fight-ending power anymore, and he never really did in the first round. Like, he would smoke a few guys in the first round, and if this was prime Garbrandt, Yanez would probably be easy work, but man, where they're at in both their careers, Yanez should be like minus 500 here, let's be honest, right? I don't see any way for Garbrandt to win this one. I think Yanez might even be able to stop Garbrandt at some point, but I'll probably take the decision there. I just think that it's just one of those cases of like trajectory, where are they at in each of their careers? It's it's not looking good for Garbrandt. I really don't even know why he's still fighting. He reached the top of the tops in the sport, and man, it's just like, dude, it's time to hang them up. You'll always be remembered as a solid fighter, but if he keeps going down this track, it's just like, what is he going to turn into? I mean, look at Tony Ferguson. This guy was even had me believing he was going to beat Habib at one point. When Habib pulled out the night he was supposed to fight Tony, I'm like, damn, Tony's great. Won the interim against Kevin Lee. Was really a solid fighter at a high level. And now what's Tony known for? He's a meme. Let's be honest. He's more of a meme than anything else and known for his losing streak at the end of his career. Even Chuck Liddell, who was an inspiration to me and really got me into the sport and who I'll always look at like a freaking legend, he's more known for his losses now than anything else. You know what I mean? When you go on like this long losing streak at the end of your career, it really dampens everything you did in your career, in your prime, I should say. So, It's kind of a sad look for Cody. I ain't gonna lie, but I think Yanez is probably one of the bigger locks on the card. So if you can get him for like under minus 300, which I'm sure he is, they're never gonna price Yanez super high against a guy like Garbrandt. Um, be all over that. Be all over that. All right, Gable Steveson versus Elisha Ellison. I think he's going to be entering this fight as maybe the biggest favorite the UFC's ever seen. I've seen him anywhere from like minus 1500 to minus 2500, which is pure insanity to me, right? Because he's obviously going to win this fight. I don't need to spend a ton of time on this. They're giving him Elisha Ellison. Look what Hokit did, or sorry, was it Hokit that did that to Ellison? I know Ellison fought Perisic, looked a mess. Alicia's one of the worst fighters on the roster, bar none. Um, yeah, so they gave him Perisic, and Perisic made easy work. You can tell from Alicia's tape that he's just not very good. So Gable's just going to get the takedowns and whatnot. But I mean, Gable didn't look great in that last one. He was getting lit up by a dude who just looked so unathletic. He was like in a Mexican fight league or something like that. Forgive me if I'm getting that wrong, but he looked awful, man. But that wrestling is just too strong. Gable obviously just a legendary college wrestler. Like, yeah, he's gonna get the takedowns if he needs to. I mean, this guy is a serious threat. So, um, not much more to say about it. They're giving him the easiest matchup he can get. We'll see how he looks. If he smashes Ellison, they can up his level a little bit, up his level. And if they build him right, I mean, I love Hokit. I think Hokit's got a great shot to become champion. But if Gable is built the right way, I mean, nobody's going to stop the takedowns. You know what I mean? And this guy can wrestle all day. So if they can't stop the takedowns, he's screwed. But they really have to build him up right because his striking does need a lot of work. He's obviously got huge power in his hands. But defense is something you learn, especially in the cage. It's not just like striking defense and sparring in the gym. You have to learn that real time punches coming at you, kicks coming at you, the knees, taking shots to the body, how it feels from real big men. And Gable doesn't look like a massive heavyweight to me. He's a little shorter than these guys. Obviously, that's gonna help with the wrestling, but yeah, I again, he's gonna smoke Ellison, takedown, ground and pound, something like that, I'm sure. But it'll be funny if he gets rocked or something, early, and like people are like, oh, I don't know about Gable, but Gable's gonna finish this dude in the first round. Like it is what it is. All right. Kai Kamaka the third versus Luke Riley. I was thinking about this one, and like when it was first announced, I was like, Luke Riley all the way, man. They're basically bringing Kamaka in here to basically like be a guppy, and feed the big fish here. And I feel like that's what they're trying to do with Riley here. They're trying to feed Kamaka to Riley because they know Kamaka doesn't have a ton of power in his hand. He looked awful in his last one against Dakota Hope. Like, really, it was a split, and I mean, he barely came through that. There were a lot of moments where you're like, damn, Kai has fallen off a cliff. They re-signed him from PFL. He probably took like, I don't know if it was a pay cut, but he's probably just taken any sort of pay just to be able to fight. And I don't know, man. Like, after seeing that Aswell performance against Bolanos and how many moments Aswell had against Riley, I'm just not super sold on Riley anymore. But I still do think he'll come through this one because, again, Riley is so big for the division and he's got a massive head. And he's just able to eat shots and just come back with three more. So this will be a fun one. I see this one probably going all 3 rounds with both guys just landing like an insane amount of significant strikes on each other. I can see Kamaka trying to get the wrestling going a little bit because if you let Riley just get off on the feet over, maybe the first round will be a little easier. He always starts a little cold, a little slow, but when Riley gets into the second and third rounds, he becomes just this locomotive, man. He's just going to keep popping you, popping you, popping you with the punches. I think Luke Riley would be a fantastic 5-round fighter because he just gets stronger as the fight goes. Incredible cardio, great durability, not the best boxing technique in all honesty, and not the best defense. So like he needs to polish those up. But right now at this level, his pace, cardio, and durability is getting him through a lot of things. And it works for him. You know what I mean? So I'm going to take him here really just because Kamaka is not a power puncher. Kamaka looked terrible against Dakota Hope. And you can argue that maybe he got the jitters again, but he's fought in the UFC for so long that it's like, dude, like, I think maybe he's just regressed a ton and maybe fighting like that PFL Bellator caliber of fighter and then moving back up to guys who are hungry to be in the UFC just kind of changes things, but I'll take Luke Riley by decision, most likely. All right, Robert Whittaker versus Nikita Krylov. And also, let me know in the comments, let me know your predictions. I want to start, shouting people's predictions out. I think that would be a really cool way to kind of shout people out, see who's doing well. I mean, people used to do this on my videos like back in the day, a decade ago. You'd leave your picks, I'll shout you out, and I can kind of follow who in the chat is or in the comments is doing the best, And so I like that. Leave your picks and let me know. Do you want me to give you guys methods? I usually don't like to give methods. But if you want me to give like fight methods, how I think it ends, I can definitely include that in each one. Sometimes I'll just kind of skim over that, but I'm trying to do that a little bit more. I know there's like a UFC prediction tracker that also is tracking me, and I'm not doing the best on that because I don't really give methods a lot of the time. But if you guys want methods too, I can do that. So just trying to make these the best I can, the most immersive I can. So please leave your predictions in there. Leave me any comments for improvements, enhancements you'd like to see. I appreciate it. So yeah, Robert Whittaker, Nikita Krylov. Robert Whittaker moving up, man. And he's moving up against an extremely dangerous guy in Krylov who looked to kind of be past it, had that shoulder surgery, which looked kind of like career ending, and then out of nowhere, comes back and fights extremely well. Obviously, Bukowskis, nothing to phone home about, but still looks solid in that one. Whitaker's last loss was against Renner de Ritter. And it's interesting he's moving up because Renner basically was the bigger man in there and just kind of bullied him around. And I thought, Whitaker actually did enough to win that fight. But de Ritter was just clinching him, making his life miserable. And I remember when Whitaker announced it, like at the desk, that he was like, I think I can compete at light heavyweight. I think I'm going to move up there. And I was thinking in my head, I'm like, don't do it, man. Don't do it. Not in this phase of your career. I don't think it's a good look. Now, obviously, the heights of the sport that Whitaker has reached have been way beyond anything Krylov has done. But Krylov is sneaky dangerous, well-rounded. The only things that have ever really plagued Krylov are his cardio. And sure, his chin has showed up and been a problem for him at times. But if Krylov can just bully Whitaker, be the bigger man in there, which he will be, I mean, Krylov's so incredibly dangerous, and it's not like Whitaker is such a durable guy himself, Like, Whitaker's shown chin issues as well. And at light heavyweight, I'm sure Whitaker will be much more solid. But man, I mean, Whitaker will prove a lot to me if he can win this fight. If he even if let's say he knocks Krylov out or something, that would be incredible. But it's a bit hard for me to see, man. I don't like this move for Whitaker. I mean, you have to remember this guy was a welterweight at one point. Obviously, he starved himself, was not fitting for that division. He's always been a fantastic middleweight, but his prime was already how many years ago? 2016, 2017. When did he stop Jacare? That was so many years ago. For me, that was prime Whitaker. He couldn't even handle like Adesanya the first time around. I mean, it seems like he does struggle with these bigger guys. And then the Hamzat loss, whatever, not the worst loss in the world, but Krylov's got an extremely suffocating style too, especially if he gets to the ground. Krylov's got a slick submission game. We've seen him grind for 3 rounds. Even look at the Vulcan win, an extremely dangerous knockout artist. Krylov was able to grind him out, just get a ton of takedowns. So, yeah, I don't really trust Whitaker's power at this weight, his durability. I don't really trust his anti-grappling here, anti-wrestling, I should say. I'm going to take Krylov here. I see he's a slight underdog here, which is funny to me. I thought they'd open Krylov as the favorite, so I like it, man. I'm going to take him plus 120 or so. That the lines might change there, but I'm going to take Krylov. I don't like Whitaker at light heavyweight, I'll be honest with you there. Tracy Cortez versus Kong Wang. Kong Wang has been like a 3-1 or 5-1 in every fight in the UFC. It is absurd to me. And it's so crazy because I've honestly like been so against, because the Gabriela Fernandez fight where she got clipped on the chin, dropped, and just destroyed. I'm like, what a fraud, man. And she still might be a fraud. She looked good in her last one though. And it seems like the sports books have enough faith in her to really just stop the takedowns, because I guess they feel like her footwork is just really good, and her striking is obviously going to be better than anyone in that division. And Cortez looks like she's kind of fallen off a cliff. Obviously her last two losses to Rose and to Blanchfield, top of the division, but that's kind of a theme of this card. It's not always who you're losing to in the last one and how high level they are. It's like how much of the game are you into with your head? Like, are you still in the game? Seems like Tracy's kind of checked out in some ways, man. That Blanchfield loss was so bad. I thought it would be kind of a close decision. She already had a win over Blanchfield. Blanchfield was just like dragging her all over the place, submitted her. First time I think we've seen Tracy submitted, at least in the UFC, of course. So I am going to go with Kong Wang. I do think Kong Wang's a fraud. I do. You don't get dropped by Gabriela Fernandez and finished if you're not. And people are gonna be like, dude, that was a fluke, whatever. There are no flukes in this game. It is what it is. Like even Islam, it wasn't a fluke that he got stopped by Adriano Martins. It was just a different version of himself. So if Kong Wang is maybe a different version of herself, so be it. But I don't really see a different version. She is hittable. I feel like she can be controlled. Eduardo Mora had a lot of luck early, but then just fell apart and got dropped. And I could actually see this fight playing out very much like that last one, where Tracy just having a lot of luck, clinching, taking her down, and then Kong Wang just starts finding the range. Bang, 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 drops Tracy, hurts Tracy, whatever. I think it'll be a decision. I think Tracy is tough. Tracy's boxing is solid enough to, I think, hang on the feet and survive. But yeah, I don't know how much of her, is in the game anymore. So I'm going to take Hong Wang. They obviously think Wang can be like this Chinese superstar for them. Weili Zhang did a lot of work for them, but Weili Zhang takes like a lot of layoffs, just a lot of layoffs, a lot of time off. So Kong Wang could be a big star for them, especially in this division that kind of needs new blood and stuff. And they love promoting these Chinese cards. There's so many people in China, so if they have another star that can really propel the UFC to new heights. So I'm going to go with Kong Wang. Again, I do think she is a fraud, but I think she'll take over in this fight. I feel like that last one was a perfect example of how this one will probably go as well and unfold. So I'll go with Kong Wang there. Kong Wong, I don't know. Wong Kong, I don't know. I really don't know how to pronounce it. They always pronounce it differently than I do. All right, and then the first fight of the night. I'm sorry, the curtain jerker here. We have Fareed Basharat versus Ethan Ewing. Personally, I feel like I don't know if I'm just underestimating Ewing in every facet here. I think I've picked against him in every fight. Like I think I picked Wellmaker against him. I picked Estevam against him. There's just something like unimpressive about him. And he looked good in the last one, but he was actually like getting kind of lit up on the feet by Estevam until, Estevam realized like, oh, I'm just an inflated 125 or couldn't really take the shots of Ewing, fell apart. And then we see Wellmaker even losing in his last one. He's a fraud. So it almost makes me feel like Ewing's last two wins were kind of just like two frauds, you know what I mean? And Ewing, again, I do underestimate the guy, I feel like, because obviously I'm picking against him and he's winning pretty clearly. The last performance was solid, but Ewing is a guy with like pace and pressure. His technique isn't great. He's very hittable. His defense is lacking. And I hate guys who just eat punches all day and kind of resort to eating punches and giving three back, because at some point they're just going to face a guy who's just more well-rounded than them, and they're going to be eating shots, and if they're not landing back, then they're going to find themselves in a hole. Fareed, I've had my questions about, but he's obviously the better Basharat brother, always has been. Got a well-rounded skill set. His wrestling is top tier. And in his last one, he impressed me, man. He was outboxing John Matsumoto better than anyone Matsumoto had fought beforehand. Even in the Rob Font fight and some other guys, that Matsumoto is always going to split decision with, etc. But Fareed's boxing was gorgeous in that fight. He was clearly beating Matsumoto up on the feet. Interestingly enough, Matsumoto was getting the better of him with the wrestling. I can see Ethan Ewing definitely overwhelming Fareed in some moments, but if Fareed looks like he did in his last one and is just clearly outboxing Ian, I feel like Ethan, did I say Ian? Sorry. Clearly outboxing Ethan, and then Fareed's also able to implement his wrestling game, because I don't think Ethan is nearly as sophisticated a grappler as like Matsumoto is. So Fareed just outboxing him and mixing it up well, and Fareed may just decide to wrestle this whole fight. Don't even give Ethan a chance to start getting off, because once he gets in that role of just like lighting you up, throwing more and more punches as the fight goes. He gets so comfortable in there. And I think Fareed can make him a bit uncomfortable by mixing it up, mixing up the game plan. And seeing Fareed at like plus 150 here, something like that, is crazy to me. I thought they'd make Fareed the favorite. How are you going to make Ethan the favorite in this fight when you made him a huge underdog against Wellmaker? You made him, was he the underdog to Estevan? He might have been a slight favorite to Estevan. It's like, you really think that Fareed's on the same level of Estevan? Give me a break, man. So yeah, I'm gonna take a risk here. If Ethan proves me wrong for the third time in a row, then obviously I'm just a massive fool. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I like where Fareed's at. I felt like his boxing looked so good last time, and Ethan again is just one of those dudes who eats a lot of punches. He'll eat punches to give them back. Not a huge fan of that style unless you've really implemented it against some high level guys. So I'm gonna take Fareed there. Not a super confident pick, but why not? I'm taking a few underdogs in this one. I hope this card's a good one. The return of Conor McGregor. If you're still watching, thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. I make predictions every week. And this card, I'm making it 2 weeks out. So just remember that we do have a week break. And have a great week off.